I'll sort it out. In the meantime, please welcome Dave!
Hello. Who here has been to the west of Ireland? Jesus, loads of you. Grant, I don't have to do the tourism pitch. It is part story, part tourism pitch. But in the west of Ireland, there's the little town, a village really, on the Galway-Mayo border called Cong. Right? And kingdoms may rise and castles may fall, but Cong will last forever. It's a very old village. And a very, very, very long time ago in Cong, there was a stream, and in that stream there was a white trout. And nobody could really remember when the trout was there. You ask people, grandchildren would ask their grandparents, it was like, was that trout there when you were a child? And they would say, actually, yeah, it was. And I remember asking my granddad about it, and it was there when he was, yeah, I don't really remember. But further back in time, in that stream, if you follow that stream up a ways, you reach a great big lake, Loch Mask, it's called. It's still there today. Huge, gorgeous. Irish tourism thing over, I swear. But there was a great white tower on the banks of Loch Mask. And in that tower was a very precious thing. The prince's betrothed, a beautiful young woman. And she was kept in that tower for her own protection, for the prince had many enemies. And she loved her prince. But his enemies loved him more. And they murdered him, and his body was dumped into Loch Mask. And her cries, her wails, could be heard for 3 days and 3 nights in the little village of Cong, miles away. And this is the problem when kingdoms rise and castles fall. Story details get lost to time. But it's said maybe the fairies took her away. Maybe the enemies of the prince. But she disappeared. And there was a white trout in the village of Cong. And many more generations passed until one day soldiers came to that village. And we've heard of soldiers tonight. And there's, I think, 3 kinds of soldier, isn't there? There's that first kind of soldier that volunteers, that wants to die for king and country. They're willing to lay their life on the line to protect their people. And they're often, sadly, the first to go. Then there's the second kind of soldier. The kind of soldier that is conscripted. They don't want to fight. They don't want to die for their country. And those are the ones that win the wars. They want to come home to their families. They don't want to die. But then there's the third kind of soldier. And this is the worst kind. This is the one that neither volunteered nor was conscripted, but was given a choice. Do you want to leave the dungeons of the palace, of the kingdom? You've committed heinous crimes, and they see trading that prison sentence for war as a gain. They're typically horrible, horrible men. And this horrible, horrible man came to the village of Cong. He was not content to stay in the army barracks. No, he kicked an old man and woman out of their cottage, and he decided he would stay there. He wasn't content with his army rations. He stole from every shop in that village and every farm around. And parents, they would lock up their daughters, and sons would escort their mothers during the times he would be about the village. And one day, he was walking through that little village, over the bridge, over the stream, and he saw this white trout. And it was sitting there, very plain to see against the dark bottom of the stream. And he was like, have you seen that? Have you seen that trout? That would make a fine dinner, wouldn't it? And an old man that would never normally engage with this character stood up very quickly and was like, no, we don't go near this trout. No, my grandfather knew this trout, and his grandfather before him, going generations back. We think maybe it's a fairy, maybe it's the devil. We don't go near this trout. We fear it. We respect it. It does us no harm. Perhaps it protects us. We leave it be. And the soldier looked at him and went, screw you, old man. I'm taking that trout. Look, it's just sitting there, swimming, facing upstream. It hasn't moved. In the last few days, I don't think it's moved. I'm going to go out. And he waded into the stream and with his bare hands picked it up out of the water and took it back to his cottage. Well, his cottage. He didn't even do it the courtesy of stunning it or whacking it against a rock, no. He let it gasp for air, gills flailing in the sun. He was a cruel man. And when he took it back to the cottage, he turned on a cast iron skillet and he went to lay it down. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am a plant-based eater, so I need your help with this. What sound does a fish on a cast iron skillet make? Give me a sizzle. A lot of sizzling. That's it. And it was searing away. And he picked it up and then he did the other side. And then he was a little confused because the side that had been down first was still perfectly scaled and white and not a mark on it, not golden, not crisp, not blistered, nothing. So he did it again. A little bit more, a little bit crackle into it. Come on. There you go. You got a vegan describing you how to sizzle. What a world we live in. Now, it had been cooking for a while. It didn't look like the heat had even whispered against it. So he flopped it out onto a plate and thought, look, it must be done. I don't know much about cooking, clearly. And he took out his dagger and he stabbed into the fish. And no sooner had he done that than he found himself against the wall of the little cottage. Looking up before him was a woman. A woman in a white dress, bleeding from her arm. And she was livid. Absolutely livid. And he was terrified. She looked him up and down, recognized the uniform of a soldier, and said, "Have you no shame? Have you no sense of duty, sir? You take me from my post. How dare you?" He was cowering in the corner. He absolutely soiled himself. And he was, please don't hurt me. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, please. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I'm so sorry. But she just let him have it. How dare you take me from my post? I am waiting in that stream for my beloved. My betrothed was promised to me. I have waited 100 years, and 100 years before, and I'll wait 100 years more. You take me back to my post, and if I have missed him, I will transform into an eagle, and I will find you. I will transform into a wolf, and I will hunt you down. Now take me back to the stream. He peeked past his arms, and he saw the fish lying on the floor of the cottage. He did not need to be told and shouted at twice. He got up, he scooped up the fish, and he ran back to the bridge over that stream, and he threw the trout back in. Give me a little splash. Give me a bigger splash. Give me a medium-sized splash. That was slower than the first one. Sizzling on point. Splashing needs work. The trout was back in the water, facing back upstream. Now those soldiers, they never saw their comrade again. But outside of the town, they did find his soiled uniform and some hair that he clearly shaved off in an effort to disguise himself. And it said at the monastery in Galway that they gained a most pious and repentant new follower that week. As for the White Trout, well, Cong is still there, Irish Tourism Board, if you're watching. Cong is still there. Kingdoms rise and castles fall, ladies and gentlemen, but Cong will last forever. And if you go to that stream in that little village, you might see a white trout with a little red mark on its side. Then again, you might not. And you could be happy that she has finally found her prince. The end.
Dave Kirk, everyone, absolutely splendid, wasn't it?